Thanks, Danny, and thanks, Max, for being here. And the rest of you, I see you've already warmed up the chat. So as Danny said, feel free to drop stuff there if you have questions as we go, and we can, yeah, we'll play it by ear. And so again, welcome, and it's always great to be here with you and just to chat. This is, us, we're pretty um, hopefully informal and welcoming and all that. And so just want to share kind of what's been going on, summary over the year for HiveTracks, and then some of my own beekeeping experience this year, and hopefully prompt you to reflect as well, and motivate you to be good record keepers as a way to be better beekeepers. So yeah, let's get started and go to the next slide. So the agenda, again, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've done this year with HiveTracks, some of our milestones, what you can do this time of year as a beekeeper in reflecting and looking forward. Again, this is a great time. The holiday and then the new year is always a time to do that personally, but in the beekeeping space, that's very worthwhile as well. And we're coming up on the winter solstice, which to me is always a flip in the beekeeping season. That's when I would say it flips from one year to the next. So then I'm also going to share a good bit of the flood story. I guess I have it listed there of my personal experience with the hurricane and the flood, and just share some of that. And then Max is going to tell us what you can look forward to. So here we go. So in 2024, these are some metrics. You can read them. I'm not going to read them all out, but internally, sometimes we call these vanity metrics. They're just numbers, right? But they do tell us something about how we've done as a as a business, as providers of software and tools. But it does also tell us something about you as our community, as the beekeepers, and our goal, as it's been from the beginning, is to give you an assist with our technology to be a better beekeeper and to engage with the technology in a way that makes you yeah, be a better beekeeper and understand more of what's going on with your bees. So what's embedded in these numbers is that you have been engaged with the app, and that's really our goal, is for you to use it well. And you'll see some of that coming out in what we're doing to help you do that even better, and to want to use the app and see the value in it and all these things that we want as beekeepers. For me, as a beekeeper myself, so lots of good inspections, photos, and this 46,000 records. Those are all the records, and you'll see in a moment, I'll give you an example of some of the other kinds of records that you might want to keep and to help tell the story of your hives. And we do have a good social following. Thanks to Danny for helping keep that strong. And if you're not following us there, please do, because that's a place to engage with us and speak. And yeah, we think we give you good content that's worthwhile. Some of social can waste time, but we're going to give you good stuff if you go there. So, all right. So that's kind of a retrospective of, and we're very happy with this growth, by the way. What we're seeing, these numbers are good for us. We hit the numbers that we wanted to, and we're going to grow even more next year. And we really depend on you. If you've been with HiveTracks for any length of time, we're very organic in how we do things, word of mouth, goodwill among our community. And so we depend on you to do that. And so share what we're doing with your friends, with your beekeeping friends, with your clubs, in your socials. And you're going to see we also are going to give you a way to engage your friends outside of beekeeping, whether it's through honey stories with your family and friends, or your customers if you sell honey, but also for those enthusiasts who be enthusiasts, whether they're nature or have gardens and just care about uh, the environment and nature. And so we're going to have a way for you to help engage them as well. So stay tuned for that. All right. What are some of the milestones? And these are things that are ongoing. And so we call them milestones, and but they're also continuing to be developed and improved. And we value your feedback on these. These are places that we believe that you can engage and engage well and be valuable to yourself and to us in what we're trying to do collectively as a HiveTracks entity. So honey stories, this is something that we've been talking about quite a bit. And this is one of those ways that you can reach out and help educate and yeah, just share more of the story of your honey and your beekeeping. Everybody loves to talk about their beekeeping with their friends. Maybe people get tired of us talking about bees, but this is a way that they can kind of do it on their own time as well. And so if you haven't tried that out or you haven't seen it, I encourage you to look at that. And then this other part, this flora and pollination documentation, this is this you can record what's blooming in your area. You can record pollinators. And this is something that we think is going to, well, we are going to grow that this coming year and give you new ways to make that meaningful. And that kind of leads into the last two milestones. This dashboard for the pro, this is something that's going to be useful for our club settings, for mentoring, for just groups of beekeepers who want to share the experience with each other in beekeeping, which is what we do. We have lots of little communities in the beekeeping universe, whether it's our friends or a club or a bigger organization. And then this last one is really a very forward-looking business part of HiveTracks, and this is biodiversity monitoring and where we are using bee data to help us understand what's going on in the ecosystems around our hives or in a particular area. And again, stay tuned to see more on that. All right. So let's take just a few minutes to think about this past season. And if you've been beekeeping for any length of time, you begin to recognize a an ebb and flow within the beekeeping season. The beekeeping season follows really the biology of the bees and their response to the environment. And as a beekeeper, you need to be in tune with that. And one way to do that is to experience it. So you have your bees, you track with them through the year, and you have these sort of events within the season for the beekeeper, for the bees. And if you're in a place where you have seasons, then this is very distinct, and you have a winter where things are pretty dormant and they're just clustering and that sort of thing. And then you go through this flow, right, of the buildup and the honey flows. And for us as beekeepers, we have management things we have to do, dealing with varroa or size of the hive, harvesting honey, all these events. And it has a similar flow every season. And so beginning to understand that and know what that your season is like is part of what being a good beekeeper is about. And so you can experience that with your own bees. So every season that you go through, you add to your experience bank, if you will, and you can lean on that for an understanding. But there's a lot of beekeepers around you who are doing the same thing, and some that have a lot more experience. And so you should learn from that experience as well. So, um, yeah, these events, you should think about, when did these things happen? Okay. And how did that, after you do it more than one season, you can say, well, how did that compare? How did that compare to other seasons? Okay. And so beginning to learn that, well, how do you record that? Well, HiveTracks clearly is a way to record that information. And it's something that you should, you know, see as valuable in your beekeeping. All right. So if you've thought about that for your own season, you know, continue to do that. Talk to the beekeepers in your area. record these things because it will help you understand when things are supposed to happen and what should be happening with your bees. So let me talk a little bit about what happened this year with our season. So if you go to the next slide. And I've used this terminology before that every colony has a story to tell. And I mean, there's a time when this hive first came into being, and then it has, this existence and events happen. Its existence depends on the foraging radius around your colony. Understanding and thinking about your hives or your colonies in this way helps you, again, to be a better beekeeper and know what do I need to do and when. And in this graphic right here this is just a screenshot from my HiveTracks for one of the hives. And you can see if you just, the little thumbnails below are part of the story of this hive. So you can see I added supers on May 21st, had a bear encounter on June 4th, which, by the way, one of the bullets you can see there, we had lots of bear issues in our area in places that we had not had them before. And who knows why, but it happened, and it was just a tough year in that regard. But you can see if you flow through this, if in the app, when you can go through this flow of the events, you can see what's happened for the whole year with this hive. And it will explain why it's healthy or not healthy, or what are the challenges that we had with those hives. So for our season, and by our, I mean my season here locally around me, in our region, you can extend out a little bit. I'm in the mountains of North Carolina, which has its own unique sort of, I mean, everybody has their own unique climate, but ours is a little different. It's pretty variable and changes drastically within 30-minute drive. I can be in a very different climate. But for us, we were very warm early, got the bees going quickly, and then had these cool spells that were just knocking the bees back. They just couldn't ever get a good, rhythm going and growing strong, and that just kind of let some viruses and things, and just not very robust hives going into our flow, and then our spring flow. We had about a week of cool and wet weather right when the flow was supposed to be happening. It pretty much killed it. So part of my beekeeping is my son keeps, he's a sideliner. I keep a few hives, and but I'm tracking with his, what he's doing. And I mean, his honey production was down probably 75% because of that. And that also highlights the importance of weather and how um, critical weather is in our beekeeping experience. So we have to be very cognizant of that and its impact. Today, I was just looking back over the season. There's you can find these weather, histories for a particular area, and it's very instructive to look back at that for different periods of the year and look at that history for those. So after that failed spring flow and just kind of the bees weren't real strong, we had a really dry and hot June. And for us, we're going into sourwood right after that. And so the bees they were okay, but not super strong, which impacted the sourwood flow a little bit. We had I would say an average to a little bit below average for our sourwood flow. And then there were some wet periods in there that knocked it back as well. So again, not just a really good year there. And then after that, our August and early September are usually kind of a dearth period. There's lots of flowers blooming, and there's sort of maintenance, pollen, lots of pollen for us in our area. Nectar, hit or miss. And then we had the flood and the hurricane, and that just yeah, threw everything for a loop. But even after that, it got super dry. Ironically enough, we had almost a drought following the hurricane, and it was super warm, and so that created some issues as well. And then, like I said, the bears were a consistent problem, not only in my beekeeping, but a lot of the beekeepers that I know, and having to put up bear fences and things in places that we hadn't before. So again, this is a snapshot. This is, hopefully you can do this with your own beekeeping. Again, do a retrospective, compare notes with your friends as well. Hopefully you're doing that in your bee clubs. That might be a good exercise for you to do in meetings, is to kind of compare notes and come up what's the beekeeping season like in our area. I've seen these calendars, you've seen them, of what should be happening at what time. Every region should be have one of those. And stay tuned because we've toyed around with lots of ideas of how to display this and to have a good graphical representation of this bee season. And I expect you'll see something from us in the near future along those lines. So, all right. So now let's shift gears a little bit, and we're going to focus in on one piece of the season. It was a pretty dramatic part of the season for me personally, and for some of the beekeepers out there. I don't know. Some of you have heard about things and been tracking with it. We've been posting uh, some stories about it as well. But again, I just want to give you a snapshot into what happened, share some of my personal experience with it, and what happened in the community. It was pretty amazing, and I've heard this story over and over, so I'm not unique in this, in kind of what we felt and what we sensed as this was going on. Um, in both the beekeeping space, but in the broader space, it was reflected in both places. So let's jump into that. Oh, wait, before you do, back up one. Oop, there we go. The the flower there is significant, and it's significant because this was post flood. Um, I have a cut flower business as a sideline thing. Um, and this flower had survived the flood and bloomed and then got hit by super cold. You can see the frost on it. So I don't know. It's just kind of a picture, a good picture of what was going on during this time. So, all right. Okay, so this is the story that happened right here where I'm sitting. I'm where I'm sitting, I can see the Big Laurel Creek that was the source of the flooding in this area. And this is Faith Mountain Farm. This is my own family's farm business. And we were literally in the middle of this flooding and hurricane. And go to the next slide, Danny, and I'll show you. This is the Google satellite view of my farm. So the blue roof there in the middle, you can see that's where I'm sitting in our house. And this image is indicative of how the geography is in the mountains where we are. Your roads follow creeks and water sources. So hence, if they're flooding, then those areas are you're going to see the impact. And clearly, you can see this peninsula, this point of land is my backyard. That's where our bees are. You can actually see some of the hives there. There's on the pallets on the left-hand side of that. There's a barn to the left of the house. There's a bridge over there, and that whole area in that uh, in that point of land was completely under water. So yeah, the water goes from that upper left to the right. Okay, so this is a big S in this creek. And this Big Laurel Creek runs into the North Fork of the New River just past this. And the whole area behind my house was in water, covered up. And it had never been so in 100 years. The barn there was 90 plus years, and it got washed away. So we had not had that big of a flood since, in that length of time. So just wanted to give you the look of the landscape of what it looked like from the satellite image. You can go look at it yourself on Google Maps. So the top panorama is looking, the house is to the left of that panorama. The barn there is shown, and this is where we've got another 5 feet of water to go up in this picture at this time. You can see a few hives right here. These are kind of my pet hives. All the hives, the production hives were out in that water past the truck that you can kind of see the top of, and everything there got washed away in the next hour of this event. And so and you might say, well, it looks like a nice flood prone area. Yes, from the satellite image, you can say, yeah, that seems like it would flood, but again, it had not done that in 100 years. And we were out there trying to pull hives out. There were about 60 hives that my son had back there. We put them here in the fall for treating and for feeding, but we can sometimes get a goldenrod flow, so we'll park them here, and then we would move them off the mountain for uh, for winter. But so that's kind of the why the hives are there. But we were out there at about 10 a.m. that morning. I realized that the water in the creek was at as high as it had ever been in the past, and I was more worried about the wind at that time. I mean, the wind from the hurricane was still pretty strong when it got here. Maybe you've seen some of the images of that, but that kind of paled compared to the water, but it was still pretty significant. And in fact, we have pretty good timber damage in our forest in odd places. And there were landslides, there was the wind damage, and then the flood damage as well. So again, we were out there. I was trying to move hives up to get them to higher ground. I set them up on deep boxes, thinking, oh, we've got another hour. We should be able to withstand it. And then it just came up super fast in about a half an hour, where it covered that whole bottom, and the hives were washing away. The bottom left picture here was one of those hives in the foreground of the picture. As I said, the water came up even further, and those hives, before I could get them moved up, they had tipped over, and you can see the bees there, in the up, crawling up into the corner of that hive. The other picture there is a whole stack of hive scales. These are solution bee hive scales. If you follow me in Sourwood, I use a lot of scale data to help monitor that. And these were all they're out there under the water in the top picture. And then they were salvaged. Well, we haven't gone through them yet to see what they yeah, what state they're in at this point. But the whole experience was pretty. I have trouble getting the right words for it. It was fascinating in a sense of just the power of water and what it can do. Um, and being in the middle of it, we were just trying to save stuff and pull stuff out. And then at some point, it was like, wow, this is way more than we were ever expecting or thinking, and we can't really do much more to save anything. So we just kind of watched it and pulled stuff out that we could. And it was super fast. It happened within a 5, 6 hour window. And that's the way floods are here in the mountains. They go up and then they go down. And by 3 p.m. in the afternoon, the sun was out, the water had started receding, and we could then see all the damage that had happened. So if you go to the next slide, and I could talk for days about what happened, clearly, but we're limited on our time. I will say, footnote, I am working on a documentary about the events that I'll share that when the time comes. But one of the big takeaways was the response of the community, and by community I mean it goes from your neighbor. When early in this, when it first happened, there's nobody else. There was no power, there was no cell connectivity, there was no nothing, and the only people that were humans that were your neighbors that you could walk to, and those responded and helped. We were cutting trees out, just to get out of the roads and things like that. And and then it bubbled out from there. So it went from your neighbors to the broader community. The local fire department was kind of the hub of connectivity and support and help and resources. And then from the beekeeping perspective, uh, the beekeeping response was pretty fast. and he beat him. And I mean, I had not even, I wasn't thinking a lot about the bees yet at that point. I mean, I was there while they were washing away, but we were more worried about water at that point, and just keeping the house going and things like that. But so quickly, beekeepers reached out, and even during the flood, on Thursday before the flood happened, there was already some flooding happening, and I saw some local beekeepers helping others move some hives that were really close to a river, and they still got washed away. They moved them, and they still got washed away. Um, and funny little stories. There's lots of them. Um, when so my friend Ricky Rourke, Horizontal Bees, if you know him, he lives near me, and he came by. It's either 1 day, 2 days after the flood to check on me, see how we were doing. And I looked in the back of his car, and there were some bee supers sitting there. And I said, Ricky, those are my bee supers because they had a unique color to them. He's like, yeah, I found them several miles up Highway 88, which is where the New River runs along, and the river had gotten all the way over that. And so he found those down there. And when I was walking along the river here, I was just picking up my equipment. I could see it. It's strewn from here to, it's probably in the Gulf of Mexico by now, especially those styrofoam hives. They're really nice, floaty things. Uh, but anyway, so there was again an immediate response from the beekeepers here locally, and the clubs themselves, they sprung into action, and Todd Swanson, I don't know if he's on here or not, but he's the president of the Ashe County Beekeepers. He was very instrumental in um, coordinating and managing a lot of that response. People wanted to help, and so a lot of people wanted to help. How do you manage that? The people that want to help, and that was a challenge as events went on, and it gets more and more organized as it goes. The further you get away from the events, and that was interesting to see. But there's a big sugar donation. I know Brian Fisher from Off the Mountain down in Concord. He's a fellow sourwood producer. He helped coordinate that. Um, and then Todd also organized this Build a Box Day, um, where they got donations, Rossman's, Miller, and I'm going to forget some people I know, but those I know were the two big ones that donated, or low cost equipment that the donations were able to buy. And they had a day where people just came together and built the boxes and things for to help replace equipment. And my son has 50 deep boxes right here on a trailer that were given from these folks. And so again, everybody came together, not only locally, but from Ashe County Beekeepers, the North Carolina State Beekeeping Association, Rick Core, they've begun coordinating things. Now there's clubs that are kind of adopting mountain counties to help support and give them, in the spring, as you know how beekeeping works. Okay, if you lose bees right now, you're not going to replace them right now. Going to need bees in the spring, and so people are working on how to get splits, how to make bees, available to folks to help replace, and all that is in process. Cayman Reynolds called me like a week after it happened, said, "What's going on? What do y'all need?" And again, that's from not from around here, but knows that there's a need and calling in. And there's others some that I haven't even been able to respond to, that people have just reached out. They want to help. And Dave Tarpey from NC State, state apiarist, they're working on things as well. So the response again has been very strong, and yeah, it's just beautiful to see how the community comes together to do that. So there's a couple of pictures here. I think, oh, there's some fondant that somebody donated, and that's what that picture is, if you're wondering. All right, Danny. Yeah, so there's Todd in the middle, and this was their Build a Box Day. And again, they just got a bunch of folks together. People from off the mountain, from other clubs came and put these boxes together, put the frames together. Next slide. They even painted them. Chris, there you are in the overalls. And again, this was just a tremendous just blessing. to me, and it's going to be and to others in the area that lost hives during that time. So, all right, Max, it is time for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, James. Yeah, it's kind of hard to, again, it's just incredible, James, like what you've been through and more so just how well the community has responded. And James lives about 40 minutes away from Boone, where I live. And yeah, I just remember the days that I wasn't able to get in contact with you and was just scrambling and trying to see if there's somebody who gets a means to like talk to the people. So it's been definitely a fall different than anything we've had. And again, I think this is sort of leading into what we're doing, that we're realizing that all about beekeeping is community, right? And the stronger the communities are, the more resilient the communities are. And there's two types of resiliencies that we could talk about. And one is maybe more of an environmental resiliency, and one is maybe more of a community resilience or resiliency, if you'd like. And we've actually, this year in particular, we've worked a lot in both directions. So I'm about to pull up something that, again, I'm about to do something that is quite risky. I'm showing something that is not entirely finished. So I'm very prepared that this will not work out the way that the way that I had planned, but we'll try it and give you a better idea of what we've been up to lately. Again, what you're seeing is our HiveTracks Pro. So this is an updated version of what is already out there. There's a few new components that have come along that we're quite excited to show you. Again, we are already testing this internally quite a bit. We are looking forward to opening up the testing to people. Everybody who's in this call will have the chance to do so. And again, what we've done, there's two things I wanted to share. It's really the community resiliency and the biodiversity resiliency. So the first big aspect is we've talked about this quite a bit. The HiveTracks Pro has been out for like 6 or 7 months, but there hasn't been a good way to summarize what we're doing, to look at kind of like what is it for all the hives that I have or the different apiaries that I have. What does it look like from the different stats perspective? What does it look like from a year-on-year basis? And even there was a lot of requests from people I would like to see maybe like an aerial image. All of these data that you can see here are just made up data. So these are random positions, but this now allows you to look into any of your apiaries in particular and have not just data in an aggregated format for all the operations, but for a particular apiary here. So in this example is like, this is the same, it connects nicely with your mobile app. So if you update the data on the mobile app, you're able to look into what you see here. And this is what James is talking. Now is the time to really review the old year. So this is a means to get a better understanding of, for example, how does the honey amount harvested per year fluctuate? What are the inspections with issues that I've seen? What are the ones that haven't had any issues? And then start to compare a little bit from one year to the other. So to get a better understanding around, what was my performance the previous year and what were the different diseases, and then starting to be able to compare it from apiary to apiary. So these are the first data visualizations. We're really excited to get a lot more feedback on kind of like what are the most exciting and the most interesting comparisons. And then with that, we've talked quite a bit about like what is the resiliency from like something that happens outside the hive. So we spent a lot of time because there's a lot of people who asked us, either beekeepers or non-beekeepers, what can we do to help the bees? Can we do in our backyard where we are? And also beekeepers who would be interested in to say, when is the honey flow? What is currently blooming? So we've spent a lot of time thinking about how we can make it easier to record data on flowers and floral resources alongside native pollinators. So there's going to be something coming up early next year in the spring where we have, with the advancement of the AI algorithms that currently happen, so the large language models that help us detect what type of flower or what type of pollinator it is that we take pictures of. So you may have already played around this season with the document flora record in the app. It was a very simple, some may say not so smart feature to date because it was just taking a picture. Now what we'll be able to launch is to have a recognition algorithm that allows us to to give us a percentage on the certainty that the algorithm thinks what this is. And then in Pro, here's a means to then visualize for your entire season. These are stock pictures that we are using to show your entire inventory for all the different flowers that you've seen. And then also, as you can see, the pollinator friendliness, for example, the nectar source quality. So as you start to understand how you can upgrade or enhance your own bee yard or your own backyard, to get a better understanding and to start to design it in a way that it makes sense. And then also from the pollinator directory, it's the same way. So if you're curious what kind of insect bug, apart from honeybees, do you see in your area? This could be a butterfly. That too will come to the mobile app and then list here in the web app in Pro. So the exciting aspect of this is that you're now able to then create an apiary in your mobile app and then create oh John, I love your reaction. So you can create an apiary in the app and a flowering site, right? So the flowering site, if you have your app handy, you can already create it, right? So you run those two in parallel. You have your apiary and you have your flowering site. You can also add your flowering records to your apiary in the app, so both works. But if you want to try it out already, the initial functionality is there, and we will have a big push. I mean, you can see it. We're finding bugs, trying to like, really make sure that it works. And we're really excited to get this into your hands, to have it try it out, and then get better and better at, again, this is, bee health is one thing, and beekeepers and bee health, there's a strong relationship, but it is about so much more. So finding ways to build the resiliency of ecosystems by taking a particular look at the floral resources and the pollinator resources. Now, the second big aspect of this is all about the resiliency of ecosystems, obviously. Now we talk about maybe the human resiliency, if you will, or the communities that we have. So we've spent a lot of time thinking about like how do we make it easier for people to collaborate, right? So much of the beekeeping is either a mentoring, it's a mentee relationship, it's a club relationship. So we thought, what if I could actually have different types of groups that I collaborate or work with, and if I had all of these in my one platform, right? So what we've basically built is an ability to create groups that I can switch in between, like you see here at the top right corner. I'm going to go to the groups tab now. These are all test groups that you've created. So you're essentially able to create a new group, assign some of your apiaries that you would like to share with the group to collaborate on. So in this case, let's look at, say, the HiveTracks group here. You can then invite other people to the group with a simple link. And this is now the copy link that somebody can use to join your group. So you can now start, if you have jointly owned hives at a church, or you have jointly owned hives as a club or as a group, you can collaborate as a group and get a feel for who are the individual beekeepers, well, how many records do they have, what are they sharing with. And the interesting aspect of it is when you join a group, you can decide which of your apiaries you would like to share, right? To make it very easy from a privacy perspective, for example, and you would like to get a better understanding around which are the hives that I want to share with this group and which are the ones that I wouldn't want to share. So you're at any point able to do that and create different groups depending on how you want to set them up across your table. So you can have, one group just with your mentees, for example, one group for your club, and then one group for your own one. And you can take any flowering site and any flowering site or any apiary and assign it to it, right? So this, as an example, when you're the admin of a group, you can look at the groups that you've currently created, anything from test 1 to test 4. You go in, and then you can auto select which ones are the apiaries that you would like to be seen in the group. And then once you get to the group and you've invited people through the sharing link, you can then cross-assign people, right? So if you have James's hive in there, and then there's Danny's hive, you can have James see Danny's hives and Danny see James's hives and collaborate on it if they wanted to. And all of that then also appears in your mobile app. So in your mobile app, you can then see your normal apiaries in combination with the apiaries that you and that you will be able to see both your own and then the specific groups that these are associated with. Cool. So what do we got else here? To allow so much communication. Yeah, I mean, all about beekeeping is communication. So again, we're we believe that this can be quite exciting to be able to have your own apiaries that you can have alongside the apiaries that you would like to follow from other people. We've also made it ensured that there's some good, again, that there's some double mechanisms before you share, that you're really aware with who is seeing something. There's some good permission tables, some good share settings, so you're always able to see who you're with. But then the interesting thing is the way we're setting this up is that if you're an admin of the group, you can add several people. You can cross-share the permissions and then create the amount of groups that you would like to. So it's really a way to make it quite easy. And as you can see here too, getting the first little lead boards, that's something that we're excited about, to have more and more people share what they do. And then I'm literally who want to get started with beekeeping, I can follow and have James, for example, oversee my apiary if that is something that I wanted. Yeah, so these are, I just wanted to show you the two key features that we are tirelessly working on. We're trying to get this ready as soon as possible. So to give all of you the chance, there's a little survey at the end of this webinar that Danny will be sharing. So if you fill in the survey, you leave your email address, you will not only get early access to all of this, but also get a nice discount code for us to get started. So again, much more to show here, but these are the top key functionality. Again, biodiversity sites and flowering sites to be able to track flowers and pollinators. And then the big, we call it like the group management. So being able to share your flowering sites and your apiaries with your friends, collaborate on apiaries, collaborate on flowering sites, having people that you can oversee from your operation. And then as always, being able to have a nice place where you can check and see where the apiaries are, and potentially where other people in your community are that need help or would like some advice on from you that you can give in a neat and simple spot where you keep track of all the different apiaries and flowering sites that your club or your community manages. And with that, back to you, Danny, or like maybe there's a few more questions or somebody wants to know, but otherwise back to you, Danny.
Cool. I think maybe did you want to share the last few slides, James, in Q&A
Sure
as well?
thing. Yeah. So, yeah, thanks, Max. And I'll just say again, there's so many things that we are doing and want to do and are excited about. And yeah, as always, it's never a dull moment. And speaking of that, there's some places that we're going to be in this coming year that we've already nailed down. We're going to be at Nobby in Kentucky. If you're going to be there, we'll be in booth 209. So stop by and say hello. Would love to see you there. And then the North Carolina State Beekeeping Conference, we've already confirmed that we're going to be there. And then, uh, you know, we are very organic and informal, but we do play on the big stage as well. So we're going to be at Apimondia in Copenhagen, and I'm sure there's some other things we'll be doing as well. And so again, we're going to be hitting the conference trail this next year as well, and would love to see you in person. Or if you just want to stop by my house, you know where I live, so the door's open. In fact, Chris stopped by the other day, but um, yeah. So we had this Q&A section here, and maybe I'll do one or two because we're being pressed on time, and I was thinking on the fly here. Maybe I'll do a session. I'll just go through the questions as a separate addendum where I could record and go through them, but. Um, My maybe number two, share your record keeping routine. That one is yeah, so you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You've been trying to figure it out. Welcome to the club. That's what I've been iterating on for the last 15 years. But what I have found is the closer to the inspection that you can record the data, the better. So don't have too long of a gap between when you make observations and see stuff and when you record it. There's different circumstances that increase that gap, but the shorter you can make that gap, that's a key, I think, to it. And so for me, um, especially if I'm in a small apiary, just a few hives, then I will try to record as I'm going. And one advantage, I don't use gloves unless I have to. And so I can, I can touch the screen, things like that. But one thing I do as I'm going through the hive is take lots of pictures. So I would very much encourage you to figure out, even with gloves and all the messiness, how to take photos. Those are super important and critical and valuable. And then, sit down in the shade and record the data. Sometimes I can't do it while I'm going through, but again, if I'm if I'm going to get that data in and get it in well, I have to do it close to the time. So maybe before I leave the apiary, I'll sit down and do it. So again, that's kind of my top level advice on that. Um, yeah, and you got to figure out what works with your beekeeping. Like I said, if you wear gloves, then get a stylist or something to help you do that. Again, be comfortable enough of when you're going to do the record keeping, but do it as close to when you make the observations as possible. Um, we already answered some of those in there. What have been the best or most useful beekeeping innovations of the last year? Ooh, that one's a good one. Um, I'm not sure that well, there's a few new ones that are bubbling around out there, but maybe I won't. I don't know if they're how robust they are yet, but yeah, there's some stuff going on in the Varroa space of Varroa treatment, things like that show promise. There's a lot of energy still, in IoT, um, in the big, like the Bee Heroes and folks like that, and that's not necessarily new. The AI stuff that's beginning to have an impact, I think, and we are, we're full on in that and evaluating that. I think that's going to give us some benefit on things that we've been trying to do in the past. It's going to help us accelerate some of that. So I'm looking forward to that in the future. So, all right, that's all for Q&A. Danny, what you got next?